thanks for coming, Brendan. We're always looking to collaborate with great companies, and obviously we've been chatting now for a little while. And always looking also for opportunities for our landlords to be able to increase the return on their property.
Nice.
So obviously we've been chatting about how solar might be able to do that, or is able to do that with some proven use cases that you've done in the past. So yeah, I just want to see if you might be able to tell our viewers how they or how Nexus Solar is able to increase the return on their property, and also a little bit about Nexus Solar and how you came to the conclusion that putting solar on rental properties is a great idea.
Yeah, no, great question. And look, thanks for having us too. It's a privilege to always, as you say, work with companies that choose to look at things a little bit differently, and certainly we found Link to be every bit of that, so that's fantastic. So basically, Nexus was going on the same path as every other solar company out there. We were looking at buying leads and doing everything like that, and we just were looking at such a big parcel of the market in that rental market and going, geez, there has to be a better way of getting to talk to them. And what we found was that a lot of people had tried, but the risk factors for the investor were always pretty high, in that they were always holding the investment up front. They were always either then turning around and having to hold the power bill, which of course left them holding a bill at the end of the tenancy, and there was just a lot of risk. And so no one was really champing at the bit as an investor to go, I've got to put solar on my rental properties. So we started at the beginning of last year, in 2018, started doing a few solar farms, and that led me to the conclusion that we could turn a rental property's home or roof into a solar farm for the investor. So that's basically where Solar Yield was birthed out of. It was birthed out of, how do we turn all these roofs that are just sitting there currently doing nothing, by helping someone to have a shelter and all that kind of stuff, and making some income for the investor as well. But how do we turn them into an income production unit just by using the vehicle of solar? So we approached a few guys. We did some exit reports, upwards of 500 exit reports. What we discovered was there was two types of people that were looking that were renting. The first one that had to move. They were moving because they had no choice. Their job moved, or family or sickness or something. They had no choice but to move. We can't affect them. Yeah. But the other people that were renting, that chose to move, which moving based on a perception, they were perceived that if I move, my cost base will be cheaper.
Sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We all know that's probably, in a way, one of the reasons why they're renting, because if you don't change your habits, your cost base probably ain't going to drop that much. But as an investor, that's a concern, because that's out of our control. Right?
Absolutely.
So what we looked at was, okay, what's the biggest cost base that most people really hate? That, letter that comes in with the nice little cellophane window on it, you always know that's a bill, right? So what that bill, the most hated bill that either investors or tenants get, is generally the electricity bill. So we said to a number of these tenants, well, what if we could have given you the cheapest cost for power in Australia? Would you still have been thinking about moving? Well, no, if we could get rid of our number one cost base, apart from our rent, we probably would have stayed. And so that led us down the track that we were probably on the right track, that tenants were going to get a win out of this, but how do we make this also a win for the investor? So this is where we then went to one of our partners, which is Energy Locals and Apex Energy, and we talked to them in and around how we could then manoeuvre this so that the investor could then get a win-win out of it as well. Because ultimately what Nexus Solar is about is, how do we get a win for the tenant? How do we get a win for the investor? How do we get a win for Link Properties? How do we get a win for Nexus Solar? It's got to be a win-win-win-win, because other than that, someone gets left out holding the baby, so to speak, right?
Absolutely.
And so we were able to do that, and effectively what that's meant is that the tenant's getting the cheapest per unit cost, kilowatt cost in Australia on 20 cents, and that's able to move based on what happens with some of the pricing. But on top of that, we were able then to go to the investor and say, what if we could get you a return of between around $900 to $1,300, depending on the property, per year return on that investment, with guarantees around us maintaining it and making sure that it's working and up and viable, so that you can make sure that your investment is going to continue to produce for you into the future.
Absolutely. That's great. And I know, of course, being in property management, that the number one cost for landlords is the vacancy rate.
Yeah.
So anything that we can do to reduce that is fantastic in and of itself, but the fact that they can also then get a return from this this investment is also another fantastic added bonus.
100%, and the modelling would tell us that at the moment it looks like we'll probably halve that vacancy rate that you would normally play with. So if a property would normally turn over every year, you're looking at the possibility there of being able to take that out to 2 years. And I know that I've heard you talk and other people in your industry talk that that's such a massive cost and burden towards the investor, that if we can do something about that, that has to have a massive return.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. And in terms of government rebates, because I know there's a wide misconception that you can only get rebates on your own property, but apparently, as through our conversation, and I have the misconception as well, it's actually per metre, isn't it? It's not in regards to just your own principal place of residence.
Yeah, that's right. So if the metre that is attached to the home hasn't had that claimed against in the past, then that property is available to have solar rebates applied to it. So, and that's regardless of whether you're a renter. If they wanted to pay for it, let's not hold our fingers and cross our feet hoping that will happen, because it doesn't happen all that often. But if you're an investor and you wanted to invest in it, yes, you can still get those rebates back. And on a 6.6 kilowatt system, that's around $4,000 that the government would be chipping in for you. And that is before we even bring up things like the $20,000 per asset tax write-off as well, that is available to people that are running their rental properties like a business as well. Where you can just claim that out. You'd be in front by the end of 2 years. You're really starting to accelerate that into a real asset growth pattern with utilising the vehicle of solar, which is we believe it's a great step.
Yeah, fantastic. And obviously this all just lowers the barrier of entry. So obviously anyone who's interested in it can obviously have a chat to you, and we'll obviously give the details at the end of this video as well. So could be cheaper than a lot of people think.
Yeah,
really.
Definitely.
Yeah. And in terms of use cases, I think you did mention some figures before, but do you know approximately how much each the projected return would be, and also to the investor, and also the potential savings to the tenant, just in some general figures?
Sure. So deal with the tenant first. The tenant, by dropping down to 20 cents a kilowatt hour cost base that they'll be paying as a flat rate, in the average tenant, what that's going to mean is around about a 25% reduction on their power bill. So, which is massive in anyone's book. If I said, someone's come along to me and said, I'll give you 25% back to your cost base, I'd be like, where do I sign? And that's what we found, is that the moment we talk to them about getting that cheaper price for their power, they're just like, oh, well, yeah, sure, I'd love to do it. Yeah, please tell my owner or my investor that, we're in, we'd love to help to play our part and get the saving. The second one is obviously, like we were talking before, we've had a couple that for instance, a couple we've done out of Goodna, and they're probably on track for around about that $1,000 mark for the year coming up, that they'll make off each of their solar. They've done 2 out there side by side. Their first quarter is due to be paid actually in the next week, and they'll be getting just over $250 per property. So it's a nice return for them. So and he's actually now talking about doing the other 2 properties he's got as well, because it's obviously starting to show good return.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
That's great. Yeah. And in terms of Nexus Solar, I know before this conversation we were talking about you also offer a warranty as well. Yeah. Can you just explain a little bit about that, and also in conclusion, anything extra about Nexus Solar that you might want to add?
Oh, look, it's funny, when you talk sales, everyone says, "Oh, but my company's the best, and we use this, and we recognised going back about 4 years ago that there would be no lack of salespeople
Yeah.
and no lack of sales companies.
Yeah.
What there would be is generally a lack of service.
Mm.
So, it's that all care, no responsibility. We've already got the solar system in, change our number 3 times and you won't find us. Yay! But what we found was that there was a product out there called Solar Support Plus. And so we bought the rights to it here in Australia. And basically what it does is, if you think about it like RACQ or RACV or NRMA or any of those sort of, on the side of the road, car fixing entities, but think about it like that for solar. So basically it helps the owner or the investor in this case to be able to know that it doesn't matter what happens to Nexus. If the worst was to happen and Nexus was to go, under normal circumstances, the manufacturer would probably turn around and say, well, we've got no idea how well it was installed, so look, we'll come out, but there more than likely will be a fee,
Mm.
Then there's the opposite. The manufacturer goes under, and then it's left all on Nexus's side, and obviously we'll cover any of the labour, but we can't cover the manufacturer's side. With Solar Support Plus, what they say is if we cannot fix it within 14 days, we will then get it replaced for you, because at the end of the day, this is about getting you guys a return. So we wanted to make sure that we're giving some certainty around that. Now, on top of that, we also go to the next level because we have an in-home device, or in this case, because of the investors, it will sit in the meter box that actually gives us direct feedback on exactly what's happening. So that helps keep the energy locals or Apex Energy, the power company, honest, but it also means that you've got certainty around what your return would be and should be.
Yes.
And it helps us also to every 3 months we get a report on how the tenant is using the system, because obviously the more they use during the day, the better the return for the investor.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that we're able to go to the tenant and say, well, why don't you think about turning your air cons on earlier during the day so that the sun is covering that cost? Because the dearest part of aircon is the first half an hour. So we're able to help them to get the most out of the solar system, and that actually, believe it or not, helps get the most return for the investor. So that's why I think Nexus is positioned so well in this journey that's really just at the beginning of its wave to do with investments and rentals, because we've got that extra warranty that gives the investor peace of mind, and we look at technology a little bit differently, which allows us then to give certainty and peace of mind to the investor and to the tenant that they're going to get the best deal moving forward.
Fantastic. Well,
thanks for having us.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.